ZilckSound.
You're tuned into ZilckSound, where business gets real, trends get broken down, and you walk away sharper than when you hit play. Brought to you by Zilck.com. Practical news for the modern entrepreneur. Now, here's your host, Rob Henley.
Welcome to ZilckSound. I'm Rob Henley. Thank you for joining us. Tonight I want to talk about marketing careers. Not the entry-level playbook, not the personal brand advice, not the LinkedIn strategy for getting your first client. I want to talk about what it actually takes to last in this industry over the years, over market shifts, over the 3 or 4 moments in every marketing career where the whole thing could have gone a different direction, and what determines which direction it goes. It comes down to 2 things that nobody puts in the job description: deadlines and trust. Let me start with something that sounds obvious and isn't. Deadlines in marketing are not the same as deadlines in other disciplines. In engineering, a deadline is a constraint. In law, it's a requirement. In marketing, a deadline is a test every single time, not a test of whether you can finish the work, a test of whether you understand what the work is for. Because marketing work rarely exists in isolation, the campaign you're building is sitting within a product launch, a quarterly earnings window, and a market moment that will not hold indefinitely. The brief you received in week 1 is already slightly wrong by week 3. The audience has moved, the competitor did something, the algorithm changed, and the person who delivers exactly what was asked for on the date it was due, having never updated anyone about any of this, thinks they did their job. Well, they didn't. They completed a task. Those are not the same thing. Here's what I've watched happen in marketing teams over and over at every level of seniority. The people who treat deadlines as the finish line get stuck. They deliver on time. Their work is just fine, and nobody quite knows what to do with them next. Because timeliness without judgment is just administration. In marketing, the real marketing requires judgment constantly, and nobody has the time, it seems. The deadline is not the measure. The measure is, did you understand what you were actually solving for? Did you track how that changed over the course of the project? And did you communicate that movement to the people who needed to know? That's the job. I've missed deadlines. I want to be honest about that. I've delivered late and it costs something. I'm not making the case for chronic lateness. There's nothing strategic in that. But every missed deadline I've been involved with, either mine or someone I worked with, the damage wasn't the lateness. The damage was the silence before it, the failure to say early enough, this is more complicated than we thought. Here's why. Here's what I need. Miss the communication deadline and you have a problem. Miss the deadline in silence and you have a trust problem. Those are very different conversations, which brings me to trust. And this is the part of the marketing career we don't discuss enough because it's slow, it doesn't fit on a resume, you can't demonstrate it in a portfolio, and you can't always say it's really there. Trust in a marketing context is built almost entirely through a single mechanism: doing what you said you would do at the quality you implied you could deliver for long enough that people stop wondering whether you will. That's it. That's the whole architecture. It sounds simple. It isn't. Because the marketing industry is full of people who are excellent at articulating what they're going to do and optimistic about their own capacity to deliver it. The gap between the pitch and the product is one of the most consistent patterns in this industry. It's huge, and everyone who's been in it longer than 2 years has learned to calibrate their expectations accordingly. What that means in practice, when you actually deliver consistently without drama, without the last minute scramble that requires everyone else to adjust, it shines. Not loudly, quietly. You show up as someone who can be trusted with the next thing, and the next thing is always more interesting than the last one. There's a version of a marketing career that's built on visibility. The person who is loudest in the room, most active on the channels, and most willing to claim credit publicly, that career can move very fast in the early years. And it tends to stop really hard somewhere in the middle distance, because visibility without substance eventually becomes a reputation for visibility without substance. And then there's the career built on track record. Slower in the beginning, less glamorous, more likely to involve doing genuinely good work inside organizations that don't celebrate it loudly, but the compound interest on that kind of reputation is extraordinary over time. The trust you build in year 2 is still paying dividends in year 7. The LinkedIn post you wrote in year 2 is not. The reel you spent days recording is archived. Your brand is in life support by then. Here's the thing about marketing as a long-term career that I wish someone had said to me clearly at the beginning. I talk about this with my friends at Zilk all the time. The skills that get you hired are almost never the skills that make you exceptional. The executional competence, the day-to-day copywriting, the campaign management, the analytics fluency, those get you in the room. They are table stakes. They are not the game. Over a long career, the game is pattern recognition. It's the accumulation of enough market context, enough failed campaigns, enough client relationships that went sideways, and ones that worked so much better than expected that you start to see things other people don't see yet. You start to recognize the shape of a problem before it's fully grown. You start to know which brief is actually about the thing it says it's about and which brief is about something else entirely. That pattern recognition cannot be rushed. It cannot be acquired from a course, a certification, or a very well-produced YouTube series. It accrues through time, through attention, through the willingness to stay curious inside work that is sometimes repetitive and unglamorous. The marketers who last, who are still doing interesting work 15 years in and haven't been replaced by a junior hire at a third of the cost, are almost universally people who treated the accumulation of that pattern recognition as the actual career. Not the title, not the salary band, the understanding. That's the experience. And there's also something worth saying about the market itself. Marketing as an industry is under the same optimization pressure we discussed in episode 4. The tools are extraordinary. The automation is real. The capacity to produce at scale has never been higher, which means the premium right now and increasingly is on judgment, on the human being who can look at the output of a very sophisticated system and say, this is technically correct and strategically wrong. On the marketer who understands the person at the end of the funnel well enough to know when the data is lying. That's not a job that gets automated. That's a job that gets more valuable as everything around it gets automated, but you have to build toward it over the years. So here's where I'll leave you tonight. If you're early in a marketing career or in the middle of one that doesn't feel like it's moving fast enough, the question worth asking isn't how do I accelerate this? It's what am I actually building? Are you building a collection of credentials or are you building a reputation for judgment? Are you chasing the role that looks right on the profile? Or are you staying long enough in the hard problems to actually understand them? The long game in marketing is not complicated. Deliver what you promise. Communicate clearly when the plan needs to change. Build the kind of track record that makes people want to bring you their problems. Accumulate the pattern recognition that only comes from staying curious over time. None of it is fast. It all takes so much effort and tears. So it's important you see this as if you're going to be here for the longest time. The deadline will come and go. The trust you built around it or didn't, that stays with you. And you know what? That's what the long game is all about. That's all, folks. I'll be back at the desk next week. I'll appreciate that you're tuning in. Thank you for following ZilckSound. Until the next one.
ZilckSound. ZilckSound.